Hi, everyone. It's Kali Persall, editor of Institutional Investing in Infrastructure, here today with Jorge Mora, co-managing partner of Jacmel Partners. We're going to talk about opportunities in the transport sector and the wider infrastructure market. So, Jorge, just kick us off with a brief introduction of yourself to start, please.
Sure, and thank you for having me. I started my career at DLJ in 1993, so almost a little bit over 30 years ago. And I finished my career before doing what I'm doing now as a vice chairman at Macquarie Capital in the U.S. My firm, which I have with one co-managing partner, was began a few years ago, but really we became partners about 3 years ago. We currently have two portfolio companies. One is in the IT space, and the other one is a design engineering firm that works mostly in transportation, particularly in airports. And we recently announced, obviously, that we are now investing directly into the infrastructure space also.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. It's great to have you on, and I'm excited to get your thoughts about the transport sector and beyond. From what I understand, the firm launched an infrastructure platform, like you said earlier this year, and has already acquired a minority stake in LaGuardia Gateway Partners, which is the private company that recently redeveloped and manages the Airport Terminal B in New York City. With that in mind, what are some of the opportunities you see within the transport sector, particularly within aviation or beyond, if you want to expand beyond that?
Sure. So we have a very specific strategy, which is a bit unique, is that we're basically trying to partner with top corporate and financial partners. We're trying to bring a different angle a little bit into the investment because we are a 100% diverse owned firm, and the world in the U.S., there's a lot of numbers going around with diversity, et cetera. But at the end of the day, the top cities, the top 100 cities in this country are already over 55% diverse, and some of them are over 80% diverse. And so to engage with those communities where you're trying to make investments, it's critical to be able to connect to those communities, and that's what we're focused on. Obviously, we're looking for good returns, but we think that engaging the community properly is critical to avoid delays of projects and things like that. And we bring that in a different way than the big corporates or the big private equity firms can do because of where we come from, and the grassroots network that we're building around what we're doing.
Yes, thank you for shedding some light on that strategy. I've been hearing that the transport sector is very attractive right now. Can you just talk a little bit about any opportunities you're seeing there, or do you disagree with that, or what is it kind of looking like, being on the ground with it?
No, I mean, if you travel, you know that with few exceptions, the airports and frankly the rail systems and most other developed countries are much better. There are a few exceptions. We have the airport in LaGuardia that we're a part of, which is ranked one of the top airports in the world now. And JFK is in the process of modernizing, and there's some other examples in the U.S. So we think it's a great space because there is a need for it. And there is bipartisan support, right? In this country, you really need to have something that everybody thinks is where the money should be going. And I don't think there's any dispute that this country needs to improve its infrastructure. We love the airport sector in particular because that's where we have a ton of experience with our portfolio company, Aurora. But we're also doing some work in rail, and so we expect that it'll be broader based around the transportation sector as one of our key focuses.
Fantastic, thank you. So you mentioned other key focuses. In addition to transport, I know the firm is targeting critical infrastructure projects and operating platforms in the energy, social, and digital sectors, also very hot right now. What sort of tailwinds or opportunities are you seeing within those sectors?
So tons of tailwinds, but first let me just talk about the reason why we're focused on those sectors. It's not just because they happen to be hot sectors. We each one of the sectors, we either have a partner in the firm or an operating partner or a senior strategic advisor that are very, very deep in those sectors. For example, one of our founding operating partners has done a ton of work in the airport space, as well as in the rail space. Outside of, let's just go outside of transportation, which I think we covered a bit. I would say that in the energy sector, there is a ton of opportunity coming. Right, it was already a hot sector. It's now being somewhat readjusted, right? Because there's a lot of noise around wind. So, for example, wind is probably something that we may not be going into heavily right now. But, for example, the governor of New York just announced that they're going to build a nuclear power plant. There's been multiple companies like Google and Apple, et cetera, that have talked about, starting some nuclear reactors that have been sitting dormant to be able to power the AI data centers. So there's an enormous amount of opportunity coming from that. And frankly, on a side note, nuclear is one of those areas where it's unfortunate that this country has not been more involved in that, because in our lifetimes, frankly, the only type of energy that will make the really lasting short-term gains is nuclear. It's an energy type that works very well in a lot of countries. France, for example, I think has something like 80% of their energy comes from nuclear. And so I don't think we're going to be anywhere near that in this country. But there is I think, a lot of tailwinds because of what AI is bringing to the table in new data centers, et cetera, that will be needed to power that. And then on top of that, obviously, your whole digital infrastructure supporting the new level of intensity the AI will generate will need better infrastructure than what we have today in digital. And so all these sectors, I think we're in for a prolonged, decade-long boom. I would not be an exaggeration.
You mentioned community engagement a little bit earlier. What are your thoughts on that when it comes to completing infrastructure investments?
It's critically important. I mean, if you think about all these projects that are going on in JFK, for example, it affects a lot of communities, right? It's one of the busiest airports in the world. It's a complete mess right now. Hopefully, in a couple of years, it'll be much easier to travel through JFK. But imagine all the communities that are impacted by it, right? They're impacted by the traffic, they're impacted by the work, they're also looking to gain employment potentially. And so that is something that is critical for these projects. I mean, there are so many projects historically, big projects, where wherever the investor did not engage with the local community, and that lawsuits, different things happen, and that delays projects. And when you're talking about multi-billion-dollar projects, a 6-month delay or a 1-year delay because the project was opposed by the local community is very, very costly, right? And so avoiding that by taking the community concerns into account and engaging with them, let them have a say on how things are done, is critical. And so we think that the role we play in these investments as a partner is critical for not only the success of it, but the return profile of it, because of avoiding unnecessary delays in those. Our approach is grassroots, right? We're not looking to come in at the last minute to try to salvage something.
Yeah, that's a good point that you bring up. I actually wrote a feature a few months back on the social license to operate and how important it is to have that sort of relationship with all the stakeholders, getting them engaged from the outset, even before, like you said, even before planning takes place. So I know Jacmel Partners, I understand you guys are involved with public-private partnerships. So I'm wondering, how do diversified investment structures such as P3s come into play for you guys?
Well, if you think most, in particular in this country, because a lot of other countries have completely privatized airports and rail in certain situations. In the U.S., that is not the case, right? The airports are usually owned by the city or state where they are based, and so P3 redevelopment brings kind of the combination of not only the private sector but the public sector working together. that partnership is critical. Who are your constituents that you need to deal with, right? You have the local population, you have the local politicians, you have the state politicians, and so you need to deal with all of those, but you also need the expertise in building and developing that, frankly, the private sector has at a completely different level than the public sector. It's hard to think of major infrastructure projects that are conducted by just the public sector that will be done as efficiently and on budget as a combination of the different groups will have. One of the things that we're focused on particularly is bringing the local businesses and entrepreneurs into the mix, so that a P3 partnership can't just be the large financial or strategic investor with the government. It needs to also bring the local entrepreneurs, the local restaurants, the local shops, everything else. You want to bring that into the mix, and that's what makes it, frankly, successful and have a genuine flavor to it once it opens. LaGuardia is a perfect example. You go into LaGuardia, the new terminal. If you've been there, the shops, the restaurants, you have local diners, that flavor is critical in these projects for them to be successful.